So David runs Cardiff Tiny Farm, a small urban farm. Sorry, I haven't talked into the microphone for a while. This is weird. Okay, let's do it again. David runs Cardiff Tiny Farm, a small urban farm located in Cardiff. David didn't grow up thinking much about food. Like most people, it was about taste, price, and convenience. After spending time working in tech, he began to feel increasingly disconnected from his work, from his food, and from the natural world. That led him to start growing food himself, first through gardening and eventually by spending time working on farms and diving deeper into local agriculture. Today, his work includes a weekly CSA, farm stand, wholesale partnership, and community gathering, all centered around helping others reconnect to their food in the same way he did and discover the joy that comes with it. And on a side note, so I've met David at EcoFest 2025, and since I've met him, he has been feeding my family thanks to his CSA boxes. And I just want to say that he's a really hard worker and very transparent about his business and farm. And the space he created is very beautiful and authentic. It feels a bit like home in France when I go there. And I want to say that this is a rare gem and that our community needs and that we should all support. So I hope, you will like it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all very much. It's a joy to come here and speak about the farm that I've poured my kind of heart and soul into for the past 3 years. Before I begin, I am my father's son, so I should kind of get a time check. I could talk for ages.
We end at 7:30, right? So you have a half hour.
Okay, well, easy.
Have fun.
Easy.
3 minutes.
I'll make sure I keep note of time. I also want to just shout out Julie for making this connection to begin with and for supporting us for so long. It's a real gift getting to know people like you, and that's a large part of the joy that I get from farming is connecting with the community around us, as I'll get to in a second. I also want to thank all of you for offering the reusable dish kit. Carter, yourself included, thanks for meeting me several times and on several occasions where I had guests coming at the last minute and you just quickly corralled the resources and brought them to the farm and really made those gatherings special. So thanks for offering all that you do, and thanks for doing everything that you do for this community and bringing attention and awareness to supporting the natural environment around us, and getting energy corralled in that direction. So with that aside, yes, my name's David. I run a farm that we call the Cardiff Tiny Farm, very aptly named because it is very small. If you go to the next slide. We are a very super small scale farm. Go down real quick. You'll get an aerial view of kind of the location that we're at. That's perfect, yeah. As you can see, we occupy 1/3 of an acre on a property that's 1 acre large. The production space is a little bit more than 1/10 of an acre because we have kind of expanded into the side here to do some flower production operations. And we've kind of transformed this whole space to be not only a production farm, but an event gathering space, coupled with a lot of other services that we've developed around it. So we practice obviously organic farming, but super small scale organic farming, which requires us to be attentive to the kind of crops that we grow and the kind of marketing and outlets that we serve. I think the next slide would be good. So we're a for-profit farm. Like I said, we have to be really conscious about how we distribute our produce because we don't have the benefits of large scale. So we often go direct to consumer. We get a bit better price for that. And going direct to consumer means knowing your consumer. That's half the fun in doing this kind of work. That's where I get to meet folks like Julie and the likes of you to tell the story of the farm itself, tell why the food is special, and also commands a slightly higher price than some of the stuff you might find at the local grocery store. So yes, we're a for-profit farm. Keep going. And to kind of showcase this is a little bit of our revenue from last year. I like to show this because people think it's a bit of a side hobby, but it can generate some good revenue, and we try our best to turn a profit. Most people are surprised to see this was, I think, as of, if you go up a little bit, I think it had the date.
Right.
So yeah, this is 2025. This is probably November timeframe. We ended with 70,000 in sales last year on a profit of 20K. So it's meager, but when you do see the space, it's not nothing, and it's not, something I feel kids especially should overlook in terms of a trade that they may consider in the future. Because although these numbers are relatively small, they're much larger than what I think most people think can be produced on the space that we occupy. And as I'll get to a little bit later in the presentation, there is a lot of opportunity to scale this further.
Ready?
Yeah, next slide, thank you.
You'll just have to tell me.
Yeah, so like I mentioned, we're an organic farm, but we do go the next length, and I like to speak about regenerative farming being the kind of farming that we practice, which really does take soil care into the fullest consideration. We are really trying to grow soil, I like to say, as opposed to growing plants. And if we grow the soil, the plants will follow. If you go down, I'll show some principles of kind of what regenerative farming is. Basically, the healthy soils, healthy plants, healthy people, and healthy planet. It really does kind of speak to a mindset of doing the small things consistently over time is what leads to long-term results. I think especially maybe I'll speak for my generation, we've looked for a lot of shortcuts. And I think what farming's taught me is you go back to basics, you do the right things, you show up every day, you work with integrity, and 10, 20, 30 years, beautiful things come about, as you all can attest to. So a bit about our history. The farm's been around since 2020. It started as a surf and garden club, so it was more of a hobby farm that was under the organizational title called Sea and Soil. Sea and Soil actually garnered the attention of a couple big surf brand names like Billabong, and they did kind of donate the initial funds to get the majority of the infrastructure that comprises the farm itself off the ground. It remained kind of a surf and garden club up until 2022 when one of my mentors, Greg, Farmer Greg, he took it and wanted to focus more on the production farming side of things. It was at that point that I entered the equation. I remember turning the corner of this one-story house that was built in like the 40s and completely being breathtaken by the site that I saw, because prior to that, I've been volunteering at a lot of farms that look like farms. And this felt like, as Julie kind of vouched for, a secret gem, a secret garden. I fell in love with it immediately, and I didn't know Greg so well at the time, but I kind of made a commitment to myself to just show up as best as I can for him and show up often, and he was so generous in letting me come around, and just started becoming good friends, and I got to know the space really well, and I became very connected to it. So that farm actually served as Greg's living resume for him to get a job at Fox Point Farms, where he's now the head farmer there. Once he left in 2024, for that opportunity, it's when I inserted myself and asked if I could keep the farm going, because we had a great community built around it, we had some infrastructure, and it just didn't feel right to see it let go. So that's when I took it over, and I've been trying to grow it and formalize it until now. And in 2026, when I created this presentation a couple months ago, I thought that July of 2026 would be kind of our last month, but we're still kicking, and I think we'll be going until December. I say that because the property that it's situated on is being permitted at the moment to eventually be developed. It's something that we knew was going to happen. The current homeowner has been super gracious, or the current property owner has been super gracious in allowing us to continue the operation for as long as we have while he awaits permits. But that does leave us in a little bit of a unknown territory. However, I'm very committed to kind of keep the spirit of the farm going, to find new land, to continue with our mission of reconnecting people to food, nature, and themselves. And wherever that is from a physical location, we're going to just kind of transport the momentum that we have to there and grow it further. I'll go to the next slide right here. So yeah, our priorities. I've really, I studied business in college, and the irony being too, I went to a college that was an agricultural school. I didn't take a single ag class. I didn't think about food, as Julie shared. I went into tech. I went into the world of numbers. I went into the world of bits and bytes, and I loved it. It was great. I got to develop some really interesting skills, but I did feel like I was moving further and further from what was real and stuff I could feel and touch and experience. And I think that was my calling to the garden. And that's what led me down this path I am today. And, I mentioned all that because in business school, it's really inverted. And these priorities that I, labeled here, I'm kind of experimenting where what if you created a business that was focused on place and making a place that's as beautiful as you can make it and attracting people to that space because of that beauty, and profits from services and opportunities and gatherings that you offer around it just naturally unfold. It kind of goes back to the soil concept. Like you grow soil, the plants will follow. So how can we build a business that rests on really good soil? And I think without these two, you're extractive. There isn't an element of regeneration. There is an element of degeneration if all you focus on is the profits, which I feel like in our culture we've kind of reached a bit of a climax in that regard. We see a lot of cheap things. You see non-reusable plastics or single-use plastics everywhere. You see convenience that's built on top of those really cheap products, and you can feel the lack of joy and spirit and commitment to what's being made sometimes. And this is maybe a little bit of a protest against that idea. But yeah, profits matter, so that's why it's listed. It's not unlisted on purpose. We do need to, I really liked actually John Mackey. He was the CEO and founder of Whole Foods. He said it really well, I thought. He equated business and money making to like your circulatory system. He says your body requires blood flow to run through it in order to survive. But humans don't exist to just have blood run through their veins. They're actually in service of something much greater. You need that blood flow just like you need capital flow, but it's in service of something much greater than just moving money around the business. So that's kind of the attitude we take here. As I mentioned, our outlets, these are the outlets that we've kind of centered ourselves upon. And in fact, I would probably rearrange these to a degree in terms of profit margin and scalability. CSA would remain on top. CSA stands for Community Supported Agriculture. It is pretty much a subscription farm box. We provide people with a curated set of locally grown organic produce and fruits every week. I've taken a lot of joy and interest in trying to grow that program. I've been a student of a lot of box subscription programs, and I see the purple carrot box back there, and I'm like studied them up, and I really admire that sort of delivery format when it comes to small farms. I think that's going to be something that carries us through. I'll speak more to that at the end, is how to get involved, because our CSA program, maybe you can chat with Julie, is something I see us doubling down on a lot as we are uncertain as where our land is going to be. I see us being a CSA provider here in the interim as we find new land. We do our farm stand. Our farm stand happens every Saturday from 9 to 12. It is where we get to see the community, interact with everybody, invite people who haven't seen or heard about us back to the farm and get acquainted with the space that we've created. Dad comes out for both of those.
Tell them about the dogs.
Oh, yeah. Dad's the consummate salesperson, so he recognized the opportunity to bring on dog treats to the farm stand. And so many dogs walk the streets that we have our farm stand at. And Dad, the first week, probably lured 5 to 10 families in who were walking dogs who, for 2 or 3 years, hadn't gave us any attention. And their dogs pulled them in, and their dogs continue to pull them in every week ever since.
Their dogs will stop in the driveway and not move until they get a dog treat.
And we heard even on Tuesdays and weekdays, dogs will hold silent protests in front of our driveway. So we pretty much ruined dog walking on Summit Avenue for the whole community. But our farm stand is a real fun neighborhood kind of third space on Saturday mornings. It's been really cool to see that become a fixture in the community. Our events we really doubled down on, starting in like the middle to end of 2024. really cool story there. I just kind of felt we had zero infrastructure for events back in August of 2024, and something in me just kind of felt like it was time. You know, it wasn't, I think I'm in a shared community here, but I felt like the farm was telling me like, hey, this is time for me to be seen. You know, it's time for folks to come here and enjoy the space. And I sensed that, felt it, and Dad and I went to work building a kind of a gathering space and a compost toilet on site. We figured those are the two bare minimum requirements to have a dinner. We used our kitchen inside for cooking, and it was good. It was a huge endeavor to get off the ground, but it proved itself to be very fun, pretty profitable, and then we just kind of continued building bits of infrastructure around it. So we have an outdoor cooking space, we have a cop oven, we have a dish space, dish cleaning space, and it's been the site of some pretty incredible events and some pretty awesome memories. And then lastly, wholesale. We do sell into a couple restaurants here in Encinitas in particular. Sego, if you guys are familiar, right next to La Paloma. Actually, delicious. I really didn't expect it to be that good when they invited me to come in for a free meal. And I was like, I'm going to talk about this forever. So go check out Sego. We have the red mustard green salad that they offer on their menu. We also do coffee. We did Etchelet in the past. We sold into Godania before. So it's been fun to get kind of out there. Even with the limited scale that we do have, we do kind of prioritize our wholesale vendors as best we can. So next slide right here. A couple of shots from here. This is our events. We had HP out for a day on the farm, so it's a really cool way to get corporate teams out there and working together. We take everyone through the phases of farming as far as seeding, planting, weeding, and harvesting. Then they enjoy a nice meal at the end. Wholesale, this is our chef from Etchelet. Chefs are interesting folks. They are creative geniuses that I sometimes get a little bit intimidated by. Our CSA boxes standing out front of our pickup site, and then lastly our farm stand here.
Oh, wow.
A couple values, I kind of mentioned our priorities, but some of our values is like, I really do believe food is medicine. It's as soon as I started taking an interest in what I ate, something awoke inside me. I started feeling better. I started showing up for life with a bit more just feeling of lightheartedness or interest or passion. So I really do believe like you are what you eat, and more importantly, if you scroll down, you are what your food eats as well. So that's kind of the notion of regenerative farming. If you keep scrolling, it looks cooler when I have a clicker. But that is it, again, back to the basics. You're looking at foundation, first principles of health, first principles of soil health. It's like, where does all the source of life stem from? The soil. Actually, that top layer is referred to as humus, which is the root word for human. So I think there's a connection there. Food connects us. It's been a really cool thing to see folks come to the tent who, through various conversations, I know their political stances. But who they're talking with doesn't know. And I know that these two people who could be at odds and at each other's throats in one context are laughing, smiling, sharing, and enjoying one another's company in the context of food. So I think it's a shared language. I think it's a shared experience that brings people together. And I think if we look for those opportunities, we can back into those tougher conversations with a little bit more openness and willingness to understand where someone's coming from. Joel Salatin's a really cool figure, and I really like this book. He actually wrote a book that says Everything I Want to Do is Illegal. It's a really cool book. He's called The Lunatic Farmer, but I really like this quote in one of his books where he says, the new 401k plan is living in communities with people that know how to grow things, fix things, and make things, and build things. Maybe a little bit of a hyperbolic statement, but the spirit of which I think is everyone works to accumulate so much financial capital so that they can do it on their own. They can just pay for the things that they need, and they don't need to rely on anybody. But what if you lived in a way that sought out dependency and sought out community, and there was that helpful neighbor, there was that helpful friend who you could rely on when things got hard. So, again, something to strive for, aspirational. It's yours to kind of take wherever you want, but I really do like the spirit behind this quote.
I know how to fix things.
Yeah.
You can say it.
And then Small is Beautiful. Has anyone ever heard of the E.F. Schumacher book called Small is Beautiful? It's a really cool book that was written in the 60s. E.F. Schumacher was a kind of, I would say, an alternative economist at the time. He was someone that spoke out against what he called gigantism, the notion of getting huge, which in the agricultural space at the time in the 80s, the notion was get big or get out. Kind of hinting at the fact that, hey, we're going to really heavily subsidize and encourage farms to, become massive in the idea of economies of scale. But E.F. Schumacher was kind of this rebellious figure that was saying, hey, actually, we need the opposite. We need to build smaller networked functions of society so that it's resilient, so that it doesn't have single points of failure, so that we can almost, in a way, like distribute wealth in a private manner as opposed to a public manner, which appeals to a lot of folks. So, I mean, that obviously in our name is the tiny farm. So small is something I've really gravitated to. It's antithetical when you do come from tech. I call farming is kind of like my active unlearning experience of everything I glean from technology. Because tech says, get $100 million, burn it to acquire as many people as you can unsustainably, and then figure out your way to profitability once people come yelling at you. And you broke a bunch of laws. It's maybe a cynical way to look at it, but it's kind of directionally true. And instead of growing your way out of problems, can you grow your way into new opportunities? So it's a measured growth. It's not saying growth is bad. It's just within reason and appropriately. Appropriate technologies is another concept that comes from this realm of ecological living, which means what's the right tool or technology? It doesn't mean all technology needs to be adopted. It's just what's the right tool that does the job that also maybe keeps the spirit of the work alive, if you will. So Small is Beautiful. It's a great book if you're looking for a good book recommendation. Speaks a little bit to the resilience of local, small, resilient networks of producers. We all kind of experienced that shock that we had in 2020, which had some heads turn for about 2 months. I think it was the biggest CSA sales that every farm had ever, which it's still good. It woke up a lot of people to wanting to eat local and connect with their farmer, but we have short memories, and it's good and bad. And we've kind of reverted back to a level of comfort that kind of matches what we had predating COVID. And then lastly, this is kind of a phrase that we say often at the farm, but be irrational with the beauty that you create. We have a board that says make something beautiful on the farm. It's kind of like our mantra. Beauty is a real value of ours. That's because you can't really trade beauty. It's not something that has a tangible value to it that I can go pay for milk at the store with, but it has an intrinsic value that people feel when they come to the space. And that goes back to our priorities of place and people being our top consideration. And that feeling has value. And that value sometimes gets translated in people wanting to support you, wanting to come back, wanting to experience the space, wanting to be around it, wanting to offer help. Yeah, it could be transacted in dollars sometimes, but a lot of times it's transacted with help and support and a word of encouragement here and there. So we like being irrational with the beauty we create because sense making nowadays is purely economic. It doesn't make sense if it doesn't make economic sense. And we're trying to reverse that trend a little bit. It should make economic sense. Again, I'm not saying we should all go out into the world and whimsically float around and toss daisies to the sides and stuff, but why not? Toss some daisies and then go make some money for rent. It's fun. So yeah, what's next? We're going to continue to prove out this tiny farm model. I do like this idea I've come across from some small farms that exist in Canada. It's a Small Farm Rebellion, if anyone's curious about a handle to follow on Instagram. But they've named this model, and kind of ironically, I've been following this model for about a year and a half now, but they call it the Farm Hub. What a Farm Hub is a production space that also focuses on distribution. So you're not doing all of the production of the crops that you grow. You're not selling all the crops that you grow. You're not growing all the things that you are selling, actually. That's a better way to put it. You are actually selling what you're growing on site, but you're combining it and curating it with goods that come from others' farms. and you're packaging it in unique ways, whether it's boxes, whether it's events, whether it's farm stands, and you're almost as much a distributor as you are a producer. It's how a 2-acre farm, like this farm in Canada, can go from a $70,000 a year in revenue to $200,000 at a 30% margin. So they can make about $80K and have a livelihood in Canada. And it scales up, because if you have a little bit of cold storage on site, which we do, and you have relationships with farms that grow a lot of produce that they can't move themselves, you're becoming this last mile distributor of sorts. And there's a real opportunity there. We have a CSA box now that ranges anywhere between 12 to 30, depending on the week. I think it's very ambitious, but I don't see why I can't serve 100 families a week. And the profit margins are decent on it too. It's enough to kind of make it appealing to really try to grow to serve 100 families. And I'd love to see other farms piggyback off of the systems that we've created at the Tiny Farm, because again, I can't shake the tech inside of me. I've built some software that helps facilitate the procurement of these boxes and the distribution of these boxes. And I'd love to see people take that software and start their own businesses on top of it. And that's kind of the idea of maybe open sourcing it and getting a small network group of people doing these CSA boxes that, you know, in total accumulate a decent footprint. Document, share, and kind of like tell the story of the Tiny Farm, hence the camera, which has a 25-minute limit, so maybe I've already spoken past it. And then find new land. Like I said, find new land and continue the CSA program. The land is the heart of the operation. It keeps us very connected. It keeps us grounded. It keeps us rooted in something real. And it directs the heart of the operation. So no matter what we do, we're going to have some space that we're going to tend to and make beautiful and invite people on site to share. That's let's call that the people and planet part, or people and place part, and then our CSA program is the profit part. So there's ways to kind of like bend and mold these things to work in harmony with one another. And I think this is the last slide. This line hit me, you know, at my core when I first read it back in 2019. Jeff Lawton is a permaculture design specialist and has done a lot of landscape work in the desert, basically greening the desert. He's committed himself to trying to test different ways to bring back habitats that have been decimated. And he's done so with a lot of success. And you know, he says you can solve all the world's problem in a garden. And for me, that's very true. It's, gardening has opened me up to the world of farming, and farming has opened my heart up to nature and so much more. And it's given me all the meaning I could ever ask for. And you know, it's not everyone's. My message isn't that everyone needs to go find a place to go farm or garden. If you do, great. But you know, finding what your farm is and seeing what you want to pour your heart into, regardless of what people say is ludicrous about it or irrational about it, if you find that your heart's pulling you in a direction and it's calling you to be of service in that way, I'm sure there's some strategy to make it work, both, you know, practically and, you know, from a place of meaning as well. So I really do believe that you can solve all the world's problems in a garden, and, you know, substitute garden with whatever your passion is in the world. I think that's it. If you want to follow us up on any you know, details, this is our website right here, CardiffTinyFarm.com. You can reach out to me at david@CardiffTinyFarm.com, and you know, if you text me, I might get back to you in like 3 weeks. But if you get in our CSA box, I'll text you the next day.
How far do you deliver your CSA?
We'll take it as far as Solana Beach is kind of our limit, up to like South Carlsbad. And that's for a small fee of $5. And if we get big enough, I'm trying to strategically incorporate drop points. So I'm looking, if we can get 10 boxes in Oceanside dropped off at a specific location, I can do that. I'm even kind of flirting with free delivery for purchases of a certain volume. I'm just learning from a lot of farms and what they're seeing success with. I'm really proud of, if you do go through our CSA purchasing flow, it's all custom. And it took a lot of joy building that, and it's like something I'm really proud of. So if you have any feedback on that and you have a bad experience, let me know. I'd love to fix it. Any other questions?
We're
Hold on, we got microphone coming around.
Yeah.